Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from Kurogane Photos. For today, I have a personal toy photography project I would love to share with you guys over here. All this equipment, these are all merely a hobby. So I am doing a lot for a hobby over here. As for the figurine you guys are looking at over here, the one I'm photographing today, I actually have a review of that figurine on a separate channel of mine where I review these toys and figurines that I photograph, so do check it out if you are interested in buying one, just in case. Now, for today's setup over here, this is a 1:7 scale figurine, and this is a fixed pose figurine. It is a bit like a statue, which means, you can't change the pose. There are no joints, and personally I prefer figurines and toys without any joints. I don't like action figures, to be honest, because the joint lines are quite unsightly, quite ugly to look at in photographs. If it is a science fiction character, mechanical looking character, robots and so on, then joints are fine. But for human looking characters, I am not a fan of them. She is leaning against a table with 4 cannons coming out like a battleship. This is sort of a battleship character of some kind. I won't go into the details over here. Otherwise, we will be going out of topic. After all, today it is about photography. And then with the character's pose over here, this is the one thing I really like about how, when a person just turns around and takes a quick glance at you, it feels really natural. It is a bit like a candid moment where you walk into a bar, a nightclub, and so on, and then when you were pointing your camera at someone just happens to turn around, took a look at you, and then you take a shot. A candid moment. And the way I'm setting this up is like I want to replicate a very similar look you would get to see in a bar or an underground wine cellar. So I am going for a very warm look over here. Right above, I have 3 LEDs over here. There are barely any filters. This is like pure hard light. It is not softened light, no diffusers up here, except for the first one in front where I have a single layer of tissue paper to soften it ever so slightly because it is hitting the figurine, the main subject down here, acting as a rim light of some kind. So I do not want to blow out the highlights on the back of the skin over here, so I soften the first one with tissue paper. The other 2 behind, those are bare bulbs with no filter, no diffuser, acting as a background light of some kind, lighting up the scene, the background wall, and so on. This wooden cabinet over here, it is really just a wooden box you can buy from any gift store. I inserted LEDs behind. I inserted LEDs from behind an LED strip that is battery powered. There isn't really much use to that light over there other than to light up the interior of the box ever so slightly so that the beer bottles do not appear to be too dark. The beer bottles are miniatures you can find from online, for example, toy stores that sell 1:6 scale miniatures for action figures. You can look for props over there, you can buy them. Meanwhile, these 2 cabinets on the side over here, these 2 shelves, once again, they are just stationary boxes, wooden boxes, and most likely they won't appear in my final photograph because I'm using a 50mm lens over here. The field of view isn't very wide in portrait position, so I don't think these 2 will show up in the photograph, but I'm putting it there just in case. And it is also why I left them empty, because there really is no point when they don't show up in the photograph. Meanwhile, all of the decorations behind, they are just solely to fill up the scene. That is how I would describe it. Like, if the background is too empty, just a plain gray color wall, then sometimes the photograph looks a bit weird in composition, as if something is missing. So I'm trying to achieve a balanced scene over here where we have brown color objects in the background on both sides, and then in the middle we have a gray color wall. So we don't have one side with a lot of props and objects like the shelf over there, the other side ending up completely empty. I want both sides to be balanced in terms of composition. In front over here, I have 2 objects. It makes no sense when you look at this kind of setup from a practical standpoint. Like, who would put a shelf or a cart right in front and obstruct someone when you walk around, right? It is obstructing someone. But I'm doing it for compensation reasons. I want a few objects in the foreground that are slightly out of focus. Composition is really important to me. Meanwhile, the main key light over here, this LED bulb, LED lamp to be exact, I can change the color temperature ever so slightly. So this is the one I'm using. This is super cheap, under 10 US dollars each. You can find it on AliExpress easily. And the front over here, this plastic piece can be changed depending on what color temperature you want. Okay, so I'm using an orange color one over here, warm color. Yeah, there is neutral and also blue. This thing is so cheap that I have 4 of them, and you can always strap a soft box in front if you wish. For this specific case, I don't see a need to use a dedicated soft box. I just wrapped a single layer of tissue paper in front with an orange filter so as to match the white balance of the lights on top, because these are indeed warm white color LEDs. And then if I were to use a pure white 5600K light right in front, then the final photograph would look really weird. So this is a common mistake I see among toy photographers, figure photographers, where when they are using a multi-light setup, they're using different kinds of light, which is fine, but you need to match the white balance. If you have a really bluish or pure white color light in front and yellow on top, yeah, it would look really funny and really almost impossible to fix in post. Meanwhile, on the other side of the setup, I have a reflector over here, which is just a good old mirror you can buy from any dollar stores, deflecting some of the key light back onto the main figure. And my aim over here is to go for her legs. Her legs looks really nice. I do not want the shadow regions to be too dark. I want to maintain the shadows, but I don't want to obliterate the shadows altogether. Nor I don't want them to be too dark. I want just a moderate amount of shadows. So I chose to use a reflector over here. Of course, there is also the option to add another light source over here and do slit lighting, a narrow band of light to hit her leg. Then you get a very nice outline on her leg over there. But that is not what I'm going for today's setup. I'm going for a similar look where you would see someone using a camera photographing with one single on-camera flash. So I don't want to do an additional rim light from the other side over here. For today, I'm using a Nikon D850 with a Sigma 50mm art right in front. I love 50mm because they look so natural. It feels like replicating what the human eyes see. So I love shooting toys and figurines with 50mm instead of longer focal length. Most people will go for macros, 190mm macros, which is fine. But you will have to step back. And the problem with macros, especially for dioramas like this, is that the background is magnified, so you actually get less detail. If you want to photograph an intricate scene like this one, you'll want a slightly wider lens, which is why I love sticking to a normal 50mm, not necessarily a macro 50mm. Okay, so the Sigma Art is a really sharp lens. It is my main go-to lens for many years on a D850. I'm going to show you guys a single shot over here straight out of camera, not yet edited. So this was taken at ISO 64 at f4 and 1/8 seconds. So at this shutter speed, you need a timer and yeah, a remote if you have. I don't have a remote with me at the moment. Meanwhile, ISO 64, I always leave at ISO 64 for indoor settings like this because I can maximize the dynamic range. More flexibility for editing later. This is specific to Nikon D850. For most other cameras, base value is 100. Meanwhile, with aperture values, photographing toys and figurines, this is mostly subjective. Are you going for more background blur or you want the figure to be sharper, right? And for a 10-inch figurine or so, f4 to f5.6 feels about right. Except in this case, the background is pretty close to the figurine, like just an inch or two away. But I want to blur off the background a bit to give that portrait feel, so I do not want to use an aperture value that is too small. f4 feels about right. This is mostly subjective, by the way. And as you can see, we have some objects in the foreground, slightly out of focus, slightly blurry. This is what I'm really going for. It is a bit like a natural frame where you have out of focus stuff at the border of the image, and then in the center, the main subject, it is tack sharp. So it is a way of composing an image, and I love doing stuff like this. Okay, so it feels like her arm over here is a bit too bright. Yeah, so I'm going to push back the light a bit. Yeah, if the light is still too harsh, then I have to add an additional layer of tissue paper to soften the light further. So this is mostly experimenting as well. Alright, now after adding an additional layer of tissue paper, stronger diffuser, I like the lighting on her left arm a lot now. Very soft looking. I don't see any changes on the back screen over here. Maybe because exposure preview isn't turned on, but it is maybe also because this light in front of me that is keeping my face bright is on. By right, I should be photographing this with this lamp turned off, right? For better contrast as well and less light pollution, because the white balance of this and this are mismatching quite a bit. Okay, so I'll move on to shoot this setup over here and I'll get back to you guys in a second. Alright, looking great so far with the progress. So I am going to continue shooting over here and I want to do some focus bracketing, which is something I do very often when I'm photographing toys in dioramas like this to increase the depth of field while blurring off the background as well. But I won't go into details with focus bracketing because it is a very technical subject and that is an entirely separate topic altogether. Focus bracketing is when I took multiple shots of the very same figure but at different focus planes and then I combine them, stack them in editing software in Photoshop, and as a result I can have an entire figurine that is tack sharp from in front to behind while keeping the background and the foreground blurred off. So you get this really unique 3D-like look, which is actually a signature of my photography style. Yeah, we won't go into the details on that for today. And that is about it for today's look into the behind the scenes of this specific setup that I have came up with this figurine, this toy over here. I hope that you found this video to be helpful or informative. And if you did, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel for more content like this in the future. Until then, I'll see you guys again very soon. Goodbye.